This is Aeon's Trespass.
The best board game ever that he will never play. This is a review for the board game Aeon Trespass Odyssey, the good and bad about it.
By the end of this video you will know if this is the Odyssey you should take.
We have 6 monstrous questions that we will answer in this video, but before we do that, Jānis, what is this game all about?
In the world of Aeon's Trespass Odyssey, you are an Argonaut who just wakes up and doesn't remember anything. Yeah. But turns out you can control these giant titans, essentially like mechs. You control them and fight all of these monstrosities. But that is just one part of the game.
It's also exploration. It's also a huge story part where you have a huge book with tons of choices and stuff. And there's also a crafting phase where you basically craft new items to fight with or upgrade your ship and do other things that just make you feel awesome. You win if you finish the whole campaign, defeat the baddies or whatever the story tells you will be the winning conditions. I won't spoil you a lot, but mostly it's finishing 3 cycles, because this book is just one of the 3 cycles. All of them have different winning conditions, but essentially it's your story and you will finish it one way or the other.
The gameplay goes through each of these phases. So there's a story phase where you will read paragraphs and make choices and then move on to other paragraphs. And at some point it will prompt you to go into the combat, which is the miniatures fighting section where you roll dice, move, use actions, open cards for the AI that attacks you and does all kinds of weird things.
You have to complete the story in 80 days or else you lose.
Like real 80 days?
It feels like it, but 80 game days, and each day will be made out of, first of all, exploration, where you draw cards and travel through this map, see what's there, maybe some side stories on the map, fight if necessary, then you will craft if necessary, and then you will continue the main story, or maybe the doom story, because yes, there's also a bad story part which you don't want to continue because it's all bad. And we're gonna talk about this game a lot more in this video, so we should jump to the first question, which is,
who would you buy this for?
3, 2, 1. If board games are not enough.
For someone who's looking for a new hobby.
It's a hobby within a hobby.
Yep.
Well, it takes a lot of hours to play.
They advertise it as the whole like base box, and it sounds so silly saying base box when it includes 200+ hours of gameplay. Base box? Are you kidding me?
I played through the first cycle, 1/3 of the game, and it took me a bit less than 100 hours. I haven't done 1/3 of it. There's enough content for you to last for a while.
I've played only 1 session where we've done a full combat, read the story, and that's why we said at the intro that it's something that I will never play because it takes a lot of time. Yeah. But would I like to? I guess we'll find out. I think this is like 2 or 3 Gloomhaven games.
Absolutely, and Gloomhaven is crazy.
In one box. What this does is add so many unique things that fit together.
It doesn't feel like just a board game. It's something a lot bigger.
So let's get into it. What are the 3 best things about this game? Okay. My 3rd best thing is going to be same board, new board. This is the board where I think the most amount of time is put into.
I would say this is 50% and everything else is the other 50%.
Okay, yeah. And you were like, it's the same board over and over again. Except it is not. So all of these terrain tokens have extra rules on them when you're fighting, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad, and sometimes you don't want them to be there and you're protecting them. Many things, and some of those pieces only come into like 2nd cycle, right? Amazing how just the same thing can be so different each time you play.
For each monster there are like set maps, but they change from time to time. If the monster gets stronger, there's even more terrain tiles, and every single tile piece like this and this has like special powers that I'll also exchange them. And talking about the board, number 3 for me is the co-op battles, because this game I feel like does co-op brilliantly because of these little tokens. Each player controls at least one of the titans, and when he attacks, he might not be strong enough to wound the monster, but he can make big enough of a dent to help the other person place these tokens there and help him wound the monster. There's no way you're gonna win if you don't all work together. A lot of these cooperative boss battlers are just, you know, here are my cool powers and I just do this and we're gonna win. Just do your best. Here, no way. You're gonna lose if you don't cooperate, and it's amazing.
My next one's gonna be writing. Amazing when a game has such good writing. The only time I've played that one session and you gave me, okay, read the story, this is where we start, and I was just reading the story and making choices, it was fun. I mean, I didn't need almost anything else. I was like, oh, so this is the game, it's amazing. But then it prompts you to do other things, and then you move into battle, and sometimes you will jump back to the storybook and jump back into the battle. You thought it's over, but it's not over. It's really good.
Yes, I totally agree with you. It's the story and it's the world that they built, and I thought, why is it so good? And I realized every time I read the text or the paragraph, I always feel like I'm there. And the other part of that you also mentioned is the choices. After every single paragraph, there are choices where you have tons of information of this set scene and you have to choose some things. And it's not just random this or random that, it's always like this the word, well, you have knowledge about it, and then you have to make these decisions, and they always have consequences. This is the best story from any board game I have ever read, because it has made me like feel things. It's amazing.
Do you know what ATO stands for?
Aeon Trespass Odysey?
No, it stands for amazingly thought out. We've talked about the combat, we talked about the writing, there's the crafting, exploration. It fits. Like I said, sometimes you jump from one thing to the other. I can't start grasping the scope of all of this after just one session, but still it just feels like every little detail, every keyword, every card, every drawing, it just has so much love and effort. It's mind-blowing.
Well, my thing is, there's a lot. This is the first game we have reviewed where I feel like there's no way three things fit good things part. There's a lot of things that we haven't yet mentioned, where they have this critical roll system where you always roll at least one white die, and if you roll 10 on it, which won't happen often, but when you do, you have a critical hit, which mitigates any bad effects from the monster, and you get resources or cards or items that are unique and happen only then if you roll a 10 on that specific card, and makes you feel like fantastic. This video could be hours long, and I would tell you about all the good things and small things, and there's just a lot of things.
Why this game might not be for them.
First and obvious one, we have to go there, is time and space.
I have table space.
It takes a lot of time, which might not be a bad thing, but you also will want to play it more and more and more, and if you just have like 2 hours a week to play it,
that's me.
Then it's kind of very difficult to get into it. But it could be solved if you have a lot of space.
Yeah, where you can set it up and never take it off, which is not me.
For example, I made a gaming table for this specific purpose, crafted something so I have space. My friend just uses his guest room's couch, and it's always there, the game is set there and laid out there, and that's the way he plays. So you will have to have space. I can't like imagine just setting it up every time.
You can do the setup, it's not like impossible. It's better if you have a dedicated space where you go to, play, go away, think about this game constantly, because you told me you did that, and then come back and play some more, go away, still continue thinking about that game constantly. But is this a solo only game at its best? Again, played one session, together with you, had a blast, works fantastically as a multiplayer. You made me make all the bad choices and then blame me for it. So, you know, like a good multiplayer game. The combat can be swingy, right?
Some cards or some combination of cards and your bad decisions, some of the titans get killed really, really quickly.
Yeah. And if you're like playing with 4 players and each player controls a titan and they die even before you start playing, you're like, okay, I guess I'll just sit it out. But if you're playing solo, not a problem at all.
What I did, I played the campaign solo, 70 plus hours, just went solo. But then in 5 different instances, I invited my friends to try out some of the story, mainly play the combat. It was really easy to introduce them when I knew all the rules and things. It's easy to switch between these 2 things. But in general, I think it is a solo game, but it's also so cool sometimes in multiplayer because the co-op is so cool, and it's also so nice to share these stories. So I don't know.
Much easier, not easy, to manage time if you only have yourself to account for.
Yeah. So my last thing is, could I raise it even higher somehow? Like this.
I'll hold it here.
Yeah.
Just floating above.
Yeah, it's getting into the game. You have this rulebook with all these things, but you could try not reading it because there is learn to play, which is also a lot. In any combat, Almost all of the cards that you use, the item cards, the bad guys, have keywords that you still have to check up here. There's a lot of stoppage of play. I'm guessing here, but like up to 10 hours went like, okay, I move here, I use this item, I don't know what that is. Okay.
Welcome to like solo board game experience with heavy games. Oh, you're actually gonna check that. Ah, okay. Go ahead. We're just waiting.
This reference is here. Oh, okay, yeah. I move here, then I attack with this. Oh, wait a minute. And it was like for 10 hours, always this stoppage of plays. I enjoyed it mostly, also was very frustrating. And it is a hobby within a hobby where you will have to put a lot of effort to get into it. And maybe that's another reason why it's better solo, because I would feel kind of very awkward after 15 minutes always checking, then everybody would sit in their phones and all that. Getting into this game is super difficult.
I did want to add one more, but then I thought, this is a board game hobby. Price, it's coming back to Kickstarter at some point soon. Or maybe when you're watching it already has happened or is happening. It's not a cheap game, but the amount you get in here is staggering. Like there's a solo game called Final Girl. All in for it is $350, which is around the same price that this goes for. I know what you would choose.
That's not a competition.
But there's an insane amount of things here for the price, and I don't think that is actually an issue.
Yeah, price doesn't matter if you will play this game.
That is the thing. That's why I wanted to put it on. How do they know? They don't.
That's why you make these videos.
Get two people together and play 2 players, or like we're probably gonna do. You're gonna finish this in 2 or 3 or 10 years, right? And then I'm gonna never finish it when you give it to me. So, you know, we can share this between ourselves. Do you think we need to cover how long is the honeymoon?
I think we could. 3, 2, 1. Content-wise, years. And feeling-wise, longer. For replayability, you always have to look at 2 things. 1, content. Is there enough content? Please. And the other one is feeling-wise, just how like you will feel playing it. Will you get bored of it? Is it exciting always? I feel it's even longer. So exciting almost all the time. I actually am ready to go back to cycle number 1, not even continue the second one, but that's not an issue you will ever have to worry about.
I have the last letter of the Greek alphabet, which is omega, which is crossed out because there's no end, there's no last letter. I've played one session, but hearing what you told me and just going through this one small session where I had so many choices to do, and depending on those choices, something else could have happened. I'd like to make those choices again at some point. What is the best alternative?
3, 2, 1. Oathsworn.
Yeah, I was thinking that Oathsworn is the closest to this.
This game also fits kind of this box of boss battler and also huge story, which we recommended as a really, really good one and a fun one. It's a similar vibe a lot of times. You don't have the time and space, then I would go to that direction.
Easier rules-wise, the story is still fun, like you said, smaller. The monsters are easier to fight, doesn't have so many rules, but still exciting enough, so it's also a good alternative boss battler, yeah. Well, mine's kind of the obvious one that everyone keeps mentioning is Kingdom Death Monster, which this game has clearly been influenced by. This one also goes through cycles. You have like the hunt phase where you hunt the monster, then you fight the monster on a similar board, and then you develop your settlement. So it's a bit less in scope, it doesn't have like this exploration phase and way less story. Why I would rate this higher than KDM is because of the theme. This one's more explicit. KDM is more explicit, more adult oriented. And I'd like to enjoy these huge epic games with my kids, and this is someone I will. Sure, it's some of the stories can be a bit gruesome and maybe bloody, but it's just text. And visually this game is not explicit. It's just huge fantasy monsters and the gods. Totally acceptable if that is an issue. So what is the final rating, huh?
What is the final rating? 2, 1. Not for everyone, but a must-have.
For me, it's fantastic, and I hope to play it sometime 2024. Do you have enough time to finish 2 cycles by 2024?
Yeah, easy game.
Yes, then gonna get into it.
You're never gonna get it. I absolutely agree it's not for everyone, and I cannot recommend it to a lot of you, but it's such a brilliant game. It's more, is it for you or is it not? That's the most important thing. And if it is, you just must have it. An experience like no other in board gaming world, absolutely unique, will blow your mind. At least it did for me.
I've scratched the surface of it, just played one session. What do I know? But I really want to play it. And I've read like the first half of the Learn to Play, and I was excited of all the things. And it does pretty good job of teaching it to you. But it is a massive game. We don't mean it has a lot of minis, which it does, or a lot of cards, which it does. It's just so many mechanisms fit into that, and it's just, the scope is comes with a lot of rules. Yeah, from all the giant games that I've ever had or have still, this is like at the top of the list. This is like, I really want to finish it. Most of it comes obviously from you being like, oh, look at that ATO, that's finished cycle 1, blah blah blah.
Thing is, we haven't talked, I think, about 80% of the game. We couldn't fit into this video all the details and stuff, crazy amount of stuff, and most of it feels really, really awesome. A lot, to be honest, I a lot of times forget about because I have these million options. Oh yeah, right, I could have used that.
What are your best alternatives to such a giant game that you could recommend?
Yeah. What's the most epic gaming experience you had? If you would support us on Patreon, or at least leave a like, comment, and all those great things that really help us.
So thank you for watching, and see you next time.
See ya.